Hello, I'm George Caylor, and now you're on the right side. Before we get to today's topics, let's hear a word from our sponsor. Today's Tea Time brought to you by Greystone Builders in Forest, residential and commercial builders specializing in new homes and small office buildings. Call Greystone at 434-610-2301. People ask me, how long does it take for you to write up these scripts and so on for my spots? And actually, I don't. These are all off the cuff. I have no notes. I just say what's on my mind. I've had a couple of people asking, what do you read, George? Well, I read the New American. It has probably the most insightful articles, history, science, and mainly information on what to watch out for. And this one is how to watch out for the UN, which is probably the most dangerous enemy America has on our soil at taxpayer expense. Another thing I like to read is from Hillsdale College, and it's Imprimis. It's free, and you can email Hillsdale, get this for free. It's a quick and easy read, and I suggest it highly. And then, of course, my own book, Surviving Georgie. I recommend it highly because I make money on this, and it's the only book endorsed by both the people at Focus on the Family and at Saturday Night Live, as well as Liberty University and others. And it's doing really well, but I need more sales before Disney would consider doing the movie on it. Today we're going to talk a little bit about our Second Amendment rights. And my own, here's a gun that I have, clips out, nothing in it, so you always make sure safety first. And put a little laser sight on there on the end. Open sights. It's a 44 Ruger Magnum, and it came with a scope. Took the scope off. For a short range skirmish gun like that, you don't need a scope. You need quickness. And it has here a peep sight, laser for night. When you're lining this thing up, first you line it up with your sights, and you have the gun fixed in a still position, and then you adjust the laser so that the laser is pointing directly at the hole that the rifle made once it's lined up. That way you know when the laser on something, that's what you're going to hit. And right now we're facing a problem with Iran, mainly because they don't have the Second Amendment. I have a number of Persian friends, and the Persians simply hate the Ayatollahs, simply hate them. But here's the problem. The Ayatollahs have the guns. The people have only flesh. Bullets. Here's a clip from my 44. Bullets against flesh. Bullets almost always win. And so we have 95% of the population in Iran who doesn't want any problem with America. Their only problem is with the Ayatollahs. And yet, they have no way to overthrow the Ayatollahs. They don't have a Second Amendment. Getting back to my gun, I've heard some of the most stupid people say that the Second Amendment was written when the musket was the only weapon back then. But the musket, actually, the Americans had rifled muskets, the Pennsylvania long rifle. And they were better than what the British had, better than what the government usually had. And so to say it's about muskets, that's like saying the First Amendment about free speech, well, that was only when they had the written word and the spoken word. They certainly didn't mean to take into account podcasts like this one, or telephones, or even radios, televisions, and so on. First Amendment doesn't apply with that. It applies to all free speech. The Second Amendment applies to all weaponry, to put us on an equivalent with any government that would try to tyrannize its citizens, the way that the Ayatollahs are tyrannizing the Persian citizens and are trying to tyrannize us. I'm going to be speaking on this this coming Tuesday. We're trying to make Virginia, almost all of it, into a Second Amendment sanctuary. My own town of Lynchburg, The town council, the majority of it, seems to be against this being a Second Amendment sanctuary. And I know that the Second Amendment sanctuary is mainly symbolic, but it does preclude public funds being used to disarm us, to take away our Second Amendments. I talked to several members of the Sheriff's Department who said there's no way that they would ever fire on a citizen because the citizen was exercising his Second Amendment rights. They wouldn't go up against the Constitution. Neither would any member of the police department. So Northam is threatening with the National Guard. Well, Hitler did that. He didn't use local people to shoot local citizens. He sent the militia from Munich into Frankfurt to do the dirty work there. They wouldn't have to shoot their friends and their neighbors. He would send the Frankfurt people down to Augsburg or to Stuttgart. He sent strangers in, and that's what the National Guard is about in Northam's mind. He thinks that he can get away with this by using the National Guard. Well, I talked to a couple of them as well, and they said there's no way that they would commit a war crime by shooting on against their own citizenry who were only standing up for their Second Amendment rights. And so I hope that our Lynchburg City Council will rethink their anti-constitutional stance and would stand for the citizens of Lynchburg and stand up for a Second Amendment sanctuary here. We'll see. Until the next time, this is George Caylor, and you are on the right side.